So now quickly I'm going to introduce the folks back here. We have, I said, Lamar White of the Bayou Brief is our moderator for the evening. And starting from my right, Jim Francis, running for the 1st Congressional District. Belden Batiste, running in the 2nd. Dr. Tammy Savoie, also in the 1st, and Ann Dugas, also in the 1st Congressional District. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Lamar, and thank you all for coming, and we're excited for a great program.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. I am, obviously, you said Lamar White, the Bayou Brief. I'm not going to give my pitch about the Bayou Brief. This is their event. There are some housekeeping notes, I guess, that they'd like for me to read to you guys, just to give you an idea of the format and the way we're going to handle this. So we're going to look at issues from a local, state, and national point of view. I think you're probably used to formats like this. The questions for the candidates will be interpreted by these vital issues. Some will cover multiple issues at once. So there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to the issues we face. Our candidates, obviously, here will have differing viewpoints. That said, this is not a debate. It's a friendly forum. I was told that it was a conservative forum. That's why I wore my Bobby Jindal T-shirt. But apparently, it's a progressive forum. So anyway, so some of these questions are going to be directed to individual candidates, and some of them are going to open up for everyone. But I guess the first question, of course, is going to be just basically a brief opening statement from each of you. Explain why you're running, the issues that you believe are most important to your district and our country. And we're going to start with parentheticals, candidate sitting on the left. So that would be Jen. Wait, actually, I'm saying that we should start with Mr. Batiste. Not to put you on the spot, but I think you have.
Good evening. How y'all doing? All right.
And also, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's going to be a time in the back. So just
hit the bell, ding.
I think he's going to have some cards in the back.
I want to thank the Big Easy from putting this on. You know, the progressive candidates. My name is Belden Batiste. I have lived in the 7th Ward for all of my days. I am a Mardi Gras Indian. I'm a musician. I grew up right in the 7th Ward. I started activist at 13 years old. And I am sick and tired of our 2nd district looking the way it is. All the issues are number one to me. But I can give you a couple of issues that I'm really concerned about. One is health. One is the environment. One is the jobs. One is affordable health care and homelessness. So I'm going to be pushing, and I want y'all just to seriously look at me. If you can tell, my opponent was invited, but he didn't show. But, you know, our district don't look like nothing. So again, my name, Belden Batiste. I'm number 16 on the ballot on November the 6th. I didn't want to be long because I got a minute.
And thank you so much. So we're going to then go to Dr. Savoie and then back around to Mr. Francis.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for being here, and thank our host. I'm Dr. Tammy Savoie, and I'm running to serve as our next Congresswoman from Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and I am a mom. I fought for 38 years for our country. I've come back home to Louisiana, and now I want to fight for Louisiana. I want to fight for economic prosperity for all Louisianians. I want a school system. I will fight for a school system that serves all of our kids. I will fight for a health care system that has affordable, accessible care to everyone. I will fight for borders that are secure through humane and ethical practices. I will fight for our environment and our coastal parishes. I will fight for a national security as a veteran that is strong, but that is just and moral. Louisiana, I will fight for you. My name is Dr. Tammy Savoie. I am number 14 on the ballot. I am the Democratic endorsed candidate, and I will fight for you. I ask for your support and your vote on November 6th. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming, and thanks to Big Easy for having this forum. My name is Ann Dugas. I am 55. I am a Desert Storm veteran. I was one of the first females in a combat unit, Navy Seabees. And in the Seabees, we had a saying that we build, we fight, we can do. And that's what I want to take to Congress, because we need change. Our environment, health care, especially the health care. If it wasn't for the Affordable Care Act, my mom would have been forced into an inpatient facility. But the Affordable Care Act allowed her to stay home. I took care of her. I couldn't get my medicine. We need change in the veterans. It's very important to me, and seniors are very important. Being disabled, I know what it's like to have to make a decision on whether you're going to get money or not, whether you're going to get groceries, food, or bills. So I want to take all the issues and fight, because we need change now. Not next year, not 2 years, now. And that's why I'm here. I hope to talk to y'all individually. My name is Ann Dugas. I'm number 10 for Washington. So we can do that. And thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Well, I will thank the Big Easy Magazine as well. I guess these aren't working tonight. All right. I'm going to blame you, Scott. All right. I'm Jim Francis. I live on the North Shore over in Covington. I'm 46. My wife is here tonight, Nicole. I've got a 10-year-old son, and I am deeply concerned about the world that we are leaving my son as he grows up. One of my biggest issues has always been teachers. My father was a teacher for 37 years. And I understood what it meant to get a good education. I was very privileged in that sense. But there are a lot of things that also came along with that, meeting with teachers and talking to them here in Tangipahoa and over in Slidell. And I understand what they are going through now. So that is a big issue with me, and I totally understand, because I took the time to actually talk with them. I don't read my bullet points from articles or magazines. I go and I actually talk. I bring people together. I listen to what they have to say. I form my opinion based on that. Healthcare is a huge issue with teachers, as it is for me as well. And thank you. And one of the big issues that we have is that we are not treating everybody fairly. We do not have a moral compass in healthcare in the corporations. The Affordable Care Act moved to actually resolve that, and that is something that I was very, very proud of. Now we see it undermined constantly and consistently. Voter rights. We are seeing a systematic voter suppression out in the open, not even on the down low like they used to do. We are seeing that consistently right now, and it is horrifying. And that's because the Republicans have simply no message whatsoever. We do. I am deeply ingrained in Democratic values, and I will represent those when I go to D.C., and I will make sure Louisiana gets heard, and I look forward to joining the Democratic coalition in D.C. in bringing America forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So this is really, I guess, the first question. On all four candidates, I invite you to answer this question. We're going to start with Dr. Savoie. The question is about balancing one's ideals and values with what a congressional representative needs to do to forge compromise and actually get laws passed. And I guess I'll give you just an example that I came up with last night, which is, a lot of Democrats were at least considering trading, citizenship for dreamers with the construction of a border wall. So I guess the question is, when should we give in to compromise and when should we not? And what values do you hold, I guess, strongly enough to where you would refuse to compromise on them?
Okay. So I just want to say that as a military member for 38 years, this is what we did. We solved problems. So when we had a problem, that we had to solve, basically it was we got the information we needed, and then we all got around the table and ideology was put aside and we had to solve the problem. So the question is, what end state do we want? So if we want dreamers to have a path to citizenship, and that's what we want, then what are we willing to give up to get there? And when we're compromising, it's not so much, are we going to fund the border wall? It's how do we get to the path for citizenship for these kids? And we can talk about the border wall, but, it just depends on everything else that's in the budget and what we would have to cut. So, no, we're not going to cut Social Security, and we're not going to cut health care and those things. So some of those things we are not going to compromise on. So it's a matter of looking at the budget and saying, where are you going to get this money? If you're giving a tax cut to the 1%ers and the corporations, and then you want to take away benefits for our senior citizens, people on Medicare, people on Medicaid, you want to gut the infrastructure and you want to take away from education and training, no, we're not going to fund your border wall. So we really have to put everything on the table and make sure that we get the end state that we want. And getting to, if we're talking about the dreamers or anything else, anything else, it's like, okay, what is the end state? That's how you solve a problem. What's the end state? And what are you willing to compromise on that end state? And how do you get there? And how do you get people on board with you? And you sit around the table and you figure that out. So that's what I bring to the table, is this experience with the military in solving problems and going in there and saying, okay, we have a problem to solve for our nation. Let's get to work and let's put ideology aside. So that's what I would do when I get to Congress.
Thank you. Dugas?
One of the things in thinking about ideas is that one of the ideas I had when I get to Congress is put a big sign above the door going into the chambers, check, ego here, and then we can all go in and talk with civility. That's not here anymore. When we talk about the Dreamers, when the Dreamers were originally, when President Obama did DACA, what he added that the Republicans do not tell you is the fact that he added 3,500 border agents. He added unarmed drones to go above the border. He added more boats and more staff. This is what he added, and he was refused funding to update the border infrastructure and their computers, their IT. He was refused funding. We need to start with these dreamers. This nation was founded by dreamers. Our founding fathers were dreamers. They came here wanting a place where they could be free, where they could pray what they wanted to pray, love who they wanted to love, grow what they wanted to grow, and not be told what to do. Our country got started, and we've gotten so far away from that, it hurts. Being a veteran, it really hurts. Seeing this is not America, what we've seen in the last 18 months. We need to get back. We need to be willing to change, because until we're all willing to change, we're not going to be able to change things. And that's what I would do, is to form a committee, sit down, get everybody's ideas, and then we find a direct path to where we can get everything resolved. And the first thing is we need to freeze. We need to stop. When I get to Congress, the first thing we need to do is just stop. Stop everything, take a breath, take a step back. Take a breather, get everybody's head back in the game, and then sit down quietly and give everybody's ideas. Because this isn't the America that I signed up for. I took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution, the nation, and our people, and Louisiana. And I take that very seriously. So it would be putting a sign, check, egos at the door, and we all work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it goes to you and then to you. I know it's just.
So what would we give up to negotiate to get our agenda passed through? Is that the question?
That's the question.
That's the question. Okay.
Correct.
We are in unique times. Traditional methods do not work. Donald Trump is very much like a small child, and he can be played dramatically. And I believe I will more than be happy to support building his wall if it means $80 billion to rebuild our coast. If that's what it takes, we can do it. And it would take years for that wall to be built. And it'd be funny how things change in 2020. Things can be changed dramatically. Look how Chuck Schumer played Donald Trump. To the fact that Trump actually signed the funding bill and said he will never sign one like that again because he got conned. He's very easy to play. We know what the Republicans want, and we know what we want. And I am willing to give up ground as long as it does not impede on anybody's civil rights. I am willing to go to the table for negotiating legalized marijuana. I am willing to fight the epidemic of opioid abuse. I am willing to fight pharmaceutical companies. And we can do this, but we're going to have to negotiate, and we're going to have to use tactics that we have never used in our past. And right now, that is to play him, Trump, like a fiddle. Now ask me in 2020, and it's going to be a different answer. Back to normal order.
My suggestion is this. We got a lot of problems, but we don't have problem solvers. So part of the reason I became an independent, because you had the Republicans. We know what they is. They was fussing. You had the Democrats. They was fussing. I think as an independent, I can bring all parties around the table and make sure work with both parties. But what I'm willing to give up, nothing that'll hurt the poor people. Nothing. But what I'm really willing to give up is the wall. The wall. We should be fighting poverty and not fighting the poor people. We spend $750 billion on a war. So that's what I'll be, doing. The $750 million, if we take that and we start addressing poverty, then you get to education better. Then you get crime better. Then you get other things that's better. So that's what I do. Now, about Donald Trump wall, well, as an independent, I'm telling you, I'm going to give him a run for his money. If I got to stand on top of his desk, do the second line, the Indian dance, or whatever, it's not going to be built. The wall is not going to be built. Our children should not be in cages. And people, we call ourselves the land of the free. This is where the people should come, to the land of the free.
I'm going to go a little off script because Ms. Dugas said something I think is worth emphasizing here, the idea of civility. We have a congressman up in Shreveport, Mike Johnson, who the first thing he did in office was create this pledge for civility. And, a few dozen legislators signed on. In the last, week or two, we've seen the person that the three of you are running against, Steve Scalise, accuse Democrats of being prone to violence and inciting violence. And then we've also heard from people like, Eric Holder, who says, kick them. And Hillary Clinton saying that, why should we be civil? Which a lot of people agree with all that. I'm just curious about, in particular, the challengers to Mr. Scalise, what you think about those remarks. Do you think that those remarks demonstrate civility and, just how do you combat this notion that we're supposed to be decent to one another, but yet we've got people that are accusing Democrats of inciting violence? Yeah, we change up the order. Sure, you can go ahead, Mr. Francis.
That's a great question. I have been studying Steve Scalise's voting record for over a year now, and it is massively alarming. If we're going to have civility, we need to have transparency and quit allowing the Republicans to put catchy little phrases on every disastrous bill that they pass through Congress. Steve Scalise has never voted in his life for raising taxes on the wealthy. He has never once raised or voted to raise taxes on corporations. 92% of the time, he has voted to raise taxes on the middle class. He comes home here and tells the middle class how much he's fighting for them, how great things are going to be as long as he stays in power. Unbelievable. I believe civility checked out in 2016. If we can get rid of the extreme right and the extreme left, yes, the extreme left, we can get back to a governing body that will actually get things done. I know that's not popular to say, but I really think if we want to get back to progress, it has to be the adults in the room. It cannot be Steve Scalise, who panders to corporations over and over, who has taken $10 million in the last few years and owes thousands of favors. He voted against the Violence Against Women's Act. Who does that? Really? I can sit here and spend an hour on his record alone, and it makes no sense. I'll talk to Republicans and say, do you agree with this? They'll say, we didn't know about it. I talked to the teachers in Tangipahoa. I said, are you aware that he turned down money for rural schools to help with their IT and infrastructure and add counselors to their classrooms? And they weren't even aware that the bill existed, let alone that Scalise voted against it. It is time to go to D.C. in huge, massive numbers and right the wrongs of the Republican Party. We have to take this country forward. And that's what we can do with the people that are sensible and willing to negotiate and work in Congress. Stop with the extremes. And Steve Scalise is one of the best examples of that Tea Party extreme nature that is corporately owned, period. And I want that changed.
I didn't realize I teed you up so well. You know what? If you want to say anything, Mr. Batiste, I mean, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sorry, you know.
We're all affected by Steve.
We are all affected by Steve Scalise and civility too.
My candidate I'm against, he said, let me show y'all now. I just won't have to feel left. He said that Steve Scalise doesn't have a racist bone in his body. Right? Cedric Richmond said that.
Why would he say that? Who? What? In response to
If
what?
you read, that was 2014. 2015, Steve said, wait a minute, Cedric. I am David Duke without the bag. You see what I'm saying? But Steve Scalise is, let me tell you, let me see what I can call him. He's a disgrace, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree we need to get back to civility, y'all. And with Steve Scalise, you can't imagine the number of times that I have been told what a nice guy he is, all right? So many of his supporters believe he's a nice guy. And he is running, as you can see, not on his record, but on the fact that he was shot and the empathy that he deserves for being shot. And he's right. We all prayed for him when he was shot, and nobody wishes him harm. But we need to expose him. We need to run on his record, okay? Because his record is atrocious. With the economy, he voted against raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to 10-something 2 times, in 2014 and in 2017. He voted for this horrendous tax increase or tax decrease for the rich and the corporations, which really is going to gut the American middle class. He is for tariffs that Trump he is all, gung-ho for these tariffs that are going to crush Louisiana more than any other state in the union. For the economy, every vote that he has taken has been against the middle class and the poor people in this country. That refusal to raise the minimum wage was a slap in the face of hard-working Louisianians, and we cannot do that again. He voted 70 times over the course of his 10 years in Congress to strip health care from the Louisiana people and the American people. He would have knocked 24 million people, 24 million Americans off of health care had he had his way. He wants to do away with pre-existing conditions. He voted against funding rural teachers. He wants to gut our education system. I can go on and on about Steve Scalise's record, but this is what we are running on. We must remain civil. That nice guy persona that he has cultivated and that he pushes on us, we have to dispel that myth, because it is a mythology, and he has created that and he has pushed that out. When we expose his record, which we will run against, and we will propose our agenda to help the middle class and to help the poor, then we will see what a nice guy he is, because he's not. He has not done anything for Louisiana. He has turned his back on Louisiana. He has put party over people, and he has put power over the Americans in this country. So we must go and expose Steve Scalise for what he is. And we can let everybody else go. We can stay nice, but we have to address his consistent slap in the face to Louisiana working people. Thank you.
Back on the topic of civility, here's just a couple of little facts that many people don't know. In 2013, when the assault weapons ban was coming up for renewal, now every Congress, bipartisan, president have all renewed it since it was written. But Steve Scalise voted no on it. Here's the kicker to that. Tell me if karma's not anything. The guy who shot up the softball stadium and shot him, had the assault weapon ban been in place, he wouldn't have been able to get a long gun because he has a record. So that's just one example of not thinking things through. Another thing, and this year, he was given $3.2 million from the NRA. He has been on their payroll for years, and that's where we need to stop. But being civil, I was always taught that if you don't have anything nice to say, then you just don't say it. Some things you don't say, and that's the way it should be. But we need to stop what's going on in this country, because it ticks me off. And many people who have heard me talk before know that I get real ticked off when it comes to this, and when it comes to the country, when it comes to seniors, when it comes to family. I look at my congressional district as a family. You're a part of my family. I'm running for you. Before my mom died, I was taking care of her. She asked, well, what are you going to do when I'm gone? I don't know. She said, okay, we'll think about it. We'll talk about it. We talked about me running. 2 weeks before she passed away, we were sitting in the hospital, and she took my hand, and she said, I wanted to let you know before I go that I think you'll make a damn good congressperson because you care, and you're going to treat everybody like family, and you're a caregiver. I said, okay, well, that made a difference. That gave me the strength and the approval to get up, and we need to take our Congress back and give it back to the people, because it's the people's house. It's our house. We need to take it back, but not get on their level. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I promised that everyone would be able to answer. I was going to give a question for each of you, and that was, forgive me, thank you for indulging me. I have my own past with Steve Scalise. So I think it'd be fair, and I'm going to skip around just a little bit to ask this question of Mr. Batiste, because we've been focused a lot on the other district, and I think this question, I think you particularly would like to answer, which is, the steps that some states are taking, including Louisiana, to prevent people from voting. What kind of legislative action can be taken to fight to ensure the right to vote for all Americans, particularly here in Louisiana? And I understand that 103 polling places have been closed just here in Louisiana in the last 3.5 years. So the floor is yours.
what action can be taken? Well, the legislator in Baton Rouge passed the law during Katrina to give the people the power to close the pollings. But I'll fight hard for all the polling places to be open back, because they need to be open, because when you doing that, some of the Democrats was doing it so they can keep getting reelected every time, like gerrymandering, right? So I'll fight hard as I possibly could to do that. Now, you're talking about the country. The country, I was watching Georgia, the governor that ran for Georgia. A lot of laws was broken. On that day, they told people they can vote. Well, no, we can't do that. We got to fight hard and make sure everyone have the right to vote. The 1965 Voting Rights Act was for everybody to vote. And so, as an independent, that will be one of the top things on my thing is voting, because every vote counts, every vote matter. Just a couple of months ago, we went to Baton Rouge with Vote in 2019 going to have 70,000 to 80,000 probation and parole people to vote. So that's what I'm telling you. I'll team up with Vote, because they get the vote done. And we'll make sure that everyone have rights to vote, because that's what it is. Voting count, every vote matters, and it wouldn't be no cheating like the Russians or nothing coming in, because we will be on top of the Russians. And they can't buy me, and I hope they don't buy none of the fine people here. But all jokes aside, we will clamp down on that. Soon I get in, we will clamp down on it, and Trump and his son-in-law will go to jail for cheating.
All right. Thank you. So the next question is about healthcare, and it's going to be directed to Dr. Savoie.
Do you want the rest of us to answer that?
No, sorry, we are moving on. Actually, if we keep it really, really brief, I mean, we do want this to be conversational, but
Yes. Really brief. This is what you do. The moment a person turns 18, they're instantly registered to vote. It can never be repealed for their entire life, period. You change the mathematical formulations. I have an analytics background. Every state could be divided up into districts mathematically equal to both parties. You take away the power of governors to draw the lines. It takes away the desire for Republicans to take over that governorship so they can draw their own lines. And it happens with Democrats too, but by and far it's the Republicans. You have to mandate a holiday for people who want to vote. Unbelievable. Those are the 3 steps you could take instantly and make sure that the freedom to vote remains free.
maybe also free bus service. So the next question is to Dr. Savoie, and I'm kind of switching this around. I hope this is okay to you guys at Big Easy Magazine, but let's talk about the fact that now we have Judge Kavanaugh on the court, and a lot of people are worried about Roe v. Wade being rolled back. The question is there anything that Congress can do to ensure women's access to health care on a state-by-state basis? So if you were to be elected to Congress, is there anything in specific that you can think of that you could be able to do to protect the right to choose here in Louisiana, in the event that Roe v. Wade gets rolled back by a majority conservative Supreme Court?
Well, we need to make women's reproductive health a priority in our country. Let me just say that there's the reproductive health, maintaining our right to access to abortion, but there's also the right to have a baby and to have a healthy baby. Our maternal mortality rates in this country are off the roof compared to other industrialized countries. So, and then you have Louisiana in this country, and our rates of maternal mortality in this country are skyrocketing too. So we have some of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, okay, in our country and in the industrialized world. So what can we do to make sure that women have access to affordable health care and affordable reproductive health care. This is extremely important. So what we need to do is make sure that we have the affordable health care, maintain the integrity of that. And if you can't afford the affordable health care, because it's not affordable for everybody, we have to have a public option. So everybody, whether that's Medicaid expansion or Medicare expansion that you can buy into, you have to have affordable health care and reproductive, contraceptive care, sex education, reproductive care, contraception, and prenatal care for any woman who conceives has to be mandated, because that is a very important priority for our country, to have women not dying on delivery tables. Why does our country have women dying on delivery tables or 6 months after they have a baby? Totally unacceptable. Totally. So I think that Louisiana, this is what we have to do from a governor's perspective, is to focus on that. And our governor has addressed this problem. He has acknowledged it, and that's the first thing we have to do as a country, is to acknowledge we have a problem with women's reproductive health, and we need to address it on a country level. Thank God we have a governor now that is addressing that problem. So the way you can do that also is setting up community clinics, because it's not just about having health care or health insurance. It's having access to that health care and health insurance, that health care. So if a woman doesn't have transportation to a doctor's office, she can't get her prenatal care. If she can't get off of work to get to the appointment, she can't get prenatal care. So this is extreme. If she doesn't have access to good food and good nutrition, doesn't matter about the care that she gets. This is a comprehensive approach that we need to take to women's reproductive health. We've not addressed this as a nation. It should be a priority in our nation, and it's not. And it's because women do not have the representation in Congress that we need. Can you imagine if we had 50% of our congressmen and our senators being female? Do you think this problem would not be addressed? No, it would be addressed immediately. We would acknowledge this problem. We would not accept women dying on the delivery table or 6 months after they have a baby. This is something that we need to take seriously. This is the future of our country, and we are not prioritizing it. This is something I would immediately prioritize and make sure that we are screaming at the top of our lungs to say this is unacceptable in this country, in our country, and in our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know I said that I'm going to give one question for everyone, but I did this last time. I, for those of you who don't know, I moderated a discussion with the three candidates, not Mr. Batiste, but I asked this question. I think we could do this really quickly. 15 seconds for each. What do you think the federal minimum wage should be?
That's easy enough. Started at 15 base, and anything above that.
So 15, okay. Dr. Savoie?
Yeah, I mean 15, but I think it should be a livable wage. So we have what's good in Bunkie, Louisiana might not be good in New Orleans, Louisiana. What's good in Oakland or San Francisco, California, certainly is not going to be, comparable to, Houma, Louisiana. So it has to be a livable wage. I think municipalities ought to be able to set their livable wage. Right now, because of Steve Scalise, when he was in the state legislature, he passed a law making sure that municipalities had no control over what they gave for their minimum wage. So this is something that we need to change in Baton Rouge as well as at the federal level.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Francis, and then Mr. Batiste.
I support the concept of a sliding scale, $13 to $16 an hour. The biggest difference is it would have to be tied to the cost of living in the area where the minimum wage is dictated, and we do not leave it up to local municipalities. It has to be done from government numbers that are actually true and can't be manipulated. $16 in New York City does not equal $13 in Shreveport, as I think we all know. So it is a livable wage, but it has to be tied into businesses, and if they want their tax cuts, they have to make sure that less than 25% of their employees receive federal funds for survival. Right now we see Amazon with over 60% on social programs because they can't have a livable wage. It's far more complex than simply a number that you make per hour. There are so many things involved, and you have to change the corporate structure and the greed that takes place on the backs of the middle class. And this is a real discussion that has to happen, and it won't be an easy one.
Thank you.
I think the minimum wage should be about $17, $18. And the reason why, I was reading the paper, and the study says that it's cost $62,000 just to live in the state of Louisiana. And when you look at the hospitality workers, they make $2.83. Some of them are living homeless. When you go near to the bridge at Canal and Broad, some of them are hospitality workers, and they're making $2.83. They can't even catch the bus. They don't have health care. They don't have this. But the reason why I say $18 an hour, because if you give them $18 an hour and then we give them real affordable housing, not this thing they're calling affordable houses where the owner can have 100 houses and just 2 of them affordable. That ain't affordable housing. So what I'm saying, we got to give these workers $18, all workers. And then another thing I want to change in Congress is equal pay for the women, because they got some women outdo men and they don't get paid, you know. So we got to change that. The women got to get the same thing as the men, or a little more, you know, because they're the breadwinners. They keep the house going and everything. And so I got to say $18. You know, I don't want my mom and my ride or die Kim to beat me up, so I'm going with $18 an hour, y'all.
I love it. So look, we've got about 15, 16 something minutes, right? 15 minutes, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this out a little bit. I think we've got one more question for Mr. Francis and Ms. Dugas, right? That y'all, I don't think I've given you a separate question. I know I haven't for Ms. Dugas. So the question to you is about the gender pay gap. I mean, I don't even have to ask the question. The gender pay gap.
No need to ask a question. Well, the gender pay gap, that's been a big problem. A lot of the problems is that one of the first things that I will do is resubmit the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA. In the ERA covers equal pay, women's reproductive rights, women's health care, everything. And by resubmitting it, making it updated to fit today's time, we can resubmit it, get it passed out again, and then bring it back for ratification. It made it out. It was signed. We were one state short from it being ratified. But the ERA covers everything that we've discussed about women's rights, women's pay, women's reproductive, everything. And the way to do it is that way. And I say that because individual bills get sent to committees. I'm sure you remember Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. Well, they get sent to a committee and they die, so nothing gets passed. The ERA? The ERA has already been passed and signed. We need to resubmit it. No need for individual bills. And they can't die. Excuse me. But that's the way we cover everything. Then that way we won't lose anything in committee. And it's the best way to do it. So that's the first thing that I would do, is also resubmit the Equal Rights Amendment. It's time we get it ratified, and I think now we can get those 35 states and get it ratified. And it's about time, because that's what it's going to take for it to be part of an amendment of the Constitution. Then nobody can say anything or stop or take it away from us or our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Given the fact that I'd like to get as many a breadth of these issues as possible, I'm going to ask that you guys all answer the next few questions, but do them as quickly as possible. I think that they're simple enough to where we can handle this. Kind of a speed round, but I know we had formatted this a little different, but we're kind of running a little slower than we thought we were going to run, which is good. So, okay, this is a good one because it's up, kind of up on the constitutional, as a constitutional amendment this cycle. The question is, should those convicted of a felony, let me rephrase this out loud. Should those convicted of a felony have the right to run for political office if that felony is a white-collar crime? I mean, I believe a felon should have the right to vote, and I think everyone here would say once they're rehabilitated they would. So let's just go with this. I mean, that is the issue on the constitutional, it's a constitutional amendment this year. So we could start with Jim. And
You probably wouldn't have many politicians left if that was not the case.
Right now it's 15 years.
Right.
So right now it's 15 years, and we want to reduce it to 5.
Right, and I would propose even reducing it lower. If you do your time and you complete your sentence, you have the full rights of any American, and you have the right to run for office and represent anybody you want to, period.
And let me make this clear. It's about white-collar and not violent crimes. We're not talking about restoring the rights of a rapist or a child,
No, and that's what the
Right.
point that I took from that was the
Yeah.
white collar, which is treated dramatically different than other
Yes.
crimes.
Yeah.
So,
I think if it's a white collar crime, I think no, because if you corrupt, you don't need to have a chance to run. Because if you corrupt and you did a white collar crime and we put you back in, you might do another white collar crime. You know what I'm saying? So I say no.
I believe it's called the Derek Shepard rule among some people.
There you go, the Derek Shepard rule.
It is,
You can call it that, but a lot of our politicians have got their hand caught in a cookie jar, and some of them have robbed children. You know what I'm saying? So when you deal with that question and you're saying yes or no, what if they robbed the children? What if they robbed the senior? What if they robbed the handicapped, the elderly? No, no, no. You and your family won't benefit from us again. No.
I tend to agree with Belden. If you are a white-collar criminal and you've done your time, just like if you're a rapist or a murderer, what about the folks that, the Wall Street folks that just drove our country into the ground recently? Do you think that they can run for Congress or the Senate or the presidency? I really think that we really need to consider that if you commit fraud, if you rob the American people blind, whether you should be able to run for office again. We really need to consider that because these are the people. If you can do this, that means you have a lot of money and you have a lot of influence and you have a lot of power. So if you're going to use that power and then get back in office, because right now the money it takes to get in office, if you have that money, you can get back in office. And it doesn't matter if you've committed a crime or not. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't say that you are not going to commit that crime again. So once you take the American people down, like all the folks that took us down in 2008, the ability for those people to get back in office, or not even just get back in office, but to hold a cabinet level position in our government, we got to think about that. That is not a good thing. We have to make sure the ethics of the people that run are impeccable. That's what we need. We need ethical, moral leadership in our government officials. That's what we need.
I have to agree with them. No, they should not be allowed to run for the main reason, like they said, there's no question about it. These are white collars with access to lots and lots and lots of money. And they did it once, they're going to do it again. We're already going through that with a couple of other people who are up north running for office this year. They shouldn't be running. And only the people can decide. And they need to act. No matter how good the person was in Congress, they got caught, they did their time, and they were arrested. Why risk it? I know several people who lost everything in 2008. And I can't let that happen again. And I'm not going to let it happen again. If you did a crime, You're going to do your more time. It's not just going to be that you serve your time and then you think you can just gallop back on with a 7-figure job. No. No.
Well, thank
That
you.
will not go.
In our very friendly forum amongst friends, I think Mr. Francis may have a response.
I'm sorry, I absolutely disagree. We are a nation of laws, and we have an equal level playing field. And what we're saying is when people leave jail because they committed some crime, now we're saying they're going to do it again. So yes, we need to take away their rights. We know we can't allow them to have a real life in the future. People go to jail basically to do their time, pay it back to society, allow the laws in place to happen. If they do it again, they're going to have a much longer sentence.
We could go on this, but I think really we've got 10 minutes left, and I know everyone wants to. So I
Thank
really
you,
do
Lamar.
want to. Yeah, I really do want to move on. Nick, we've got a few more questions, and I'm seeing the time signals. And plus, I want to talk about marijuana decriminalization because it hasn't been talked about much in this cycle. And it's been following the election in Texas, and you've got this Senate candidate who talks about it everywhere he goes. So the question is not just about medicinal use, it's about recreational use. Should Louisiana allow the recreational use of marijuana? Yes or no? I guess I kind of probably know the answer here, but... And if not, why not? I mean, there's some reasonable Democrats that say we shouldn't. I'm going to start with Ms. Dugas.
Should. If you look at it, most of the incidents that... Most of the incidents and wrecks and stuff happens with alcohol. Medical marijuana, which a couple of friends of mine had, and being a chronic pain patient, we need to take the stipulation away. We need to make it recreational because more people have been killed by booze than by marijuana.
Yes, thank you.
And
I don't think anyone's
should
been
be.
killed by it. Okay, Dr. Savoie.
Well, I think, yes, the answer is yes, but we have to be prepared, though, because, yes, we have more wrecks and DUIs and everything because of alcohol, but that's because alcohol is legal. So we need to be prepared. First thing, marijuana is the laws against marijuana are not distributed equally. So for some people already, marijuana is legal and you're not going to go to jail if you're smoking it or distributing it. But for other people, for example, minorities are arrested and larger percentages, their jail time is exceedingly larger. So the law is not fair anyway. So we need to level the playing field to make sure that this is an equal law. Now, once we legalize marijuana, that means we are going to get more intoxicated drivers. We're going to get more addiction from marijuana. And so we just need to be prepared for that. That is just, how things work. And, it's not going to be overwhelming, but it'll be there. And our addiction counselors need to be prepared for that. And so do our law enforcement officers. And we have to have procedures in place for that because it will happen. So, we need to be proactive about that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway,
Speed it up just a little bit.
I am adamantly against everything that she just said. If you go to my website, you'll see 6 very distinct reasons and the facts from over a decade of legalization in Denver and Colorado that DUIs drop, opioid addiction drops, crimes drop. It's absurd. It needs to be legalized. Go to my website and you will see the very, very specific facts on why it needs to be legalized. It is a legal form of segregation.
I said it needs to be legalized. But as a psychologist, I know the truth. I know that when you legalize a drug, then the addiction rates go up because people use it more. It's just that simple. Now, we're not going to have overwhelming addiction rates, but counselors will see more addiction. That's the bottom line. That's not a big deal. We still need to make it legal, but we cannot ignore the fact that when you make a substance legal, just like we have opioid prescription use, it's skyrocketing because doctors give it out. So we cannot ignore the fact of that when people use drugs and they're available, addiction increases. It's not going to be overwhelming, but our addiction counselors will see that. Doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be illegal. It needs to be legalized. That's what I said.
I think Mr.
It's my
Batiste-
turn. Yeah. I'm going to break it down for y'all. Listen to me. I'm a scientist. Psych, I'm just joking with y'all. But look, it need to be legal. I'm going to tell you why. I was watching the news. They had a disabled child, and they said the lotion was made from the marijuana, right? And then, I had a grandma, and my grandma was like, man, I got a prescription for some marijuana. I said, what? She said, make me see straight. So if it make my grandma see straight, it should be legal. But anyway, you got 680,000 people in the state of Louisiana sitting in jail for marijuana charges. We need to legalize marijuana and be chasing these rapers, the people that selling drugs, the people got these big assault rifles. So marijuana need to be legal. And if you need some other evidence, go to California. They made $60 billion off of marijuana. They got something called an octagon. You get a little card, you go in there, and you can do the marijuana. So it needs to be legal. And soon I get in, we're going to make it legal.
Excellent. All right. How much more time do we have left? Okay, so I want to do two more questions because I think these are the coolest ones. I mean, really. And hopefully y'all won't, get mad at each other over them. But okay, so I think we can begin with Mr. Batiste on this one because I understand that Lee Circle is, I know it still maybe seems like old news in a way, but it's not. This is a top priority right now among the administration, what to do with it. Well, this is kind of a weird way of phrasing it. Let's just say this. What the hell needs to go there?
Well, I'm going to tell you what need to go there. If it was me, we're known as the gumbo pot, right? The gumbo pot. So we'll make this big pot with the gumbo and look like the meat. Because if you go to say, well, you want this, you want that there, you're going to have an argument. But who can fuss about a gumbo pot? You know what I'm saying? Like I got on my record, you know what I'm saying? Because I would want the second line. I would want Danny Barker. I would want a lot of people there, you know what I'm saying? But you're going to have half of New Orleans this way, half of New Orleans that way. So if we put a gumbo pot there and put the meat, the crawfish, the crab, even if they won't put all these people in, but I'll put the gumbo pot there because everybody come here for what? Gumbo.
Does anyone want to try to, rebut that? If you don't, because I thought it was a good answer. Since we have only a little bit of time, I'm really curious about this. It's the number one, I think, existential issue in the entire state of Louisiana, which is the coast, the environment. And my understanding, this is last year, James Carville taught a class at Tulane. This was last year at Tulane. And he brought in the people that did the Don't Mess with Texas, ad campaign. I'm not trying to get you guys to figure out what the Don't Mess with Texas version of Save Our Coast would be, but if you're elected to Congress, how would you sell the need to restore our coast to some rancher in Montana?
Great question. I would frame it as a national security issue. I've been talking about this for months. Nicole and I traveled the coast throughout Slidell, through Lake Bjorn, everything else. We met with shrimpers. We saw the actual coastal erosion, and I would explain to them that a majority of their seafood comes from that area. If they want to pay more, that's what's going to happen if they don't address the issue. It's an $80 billion solution. That just gets us started. But we have to actually restore this land. When we were 20 feet off the shore, and this shrimp guy said, you know where your boat is right now? We used to drive 2,000-pound machinery across here. Harvesting land. We're losing the land that we can actually have farmers produce income off of. And we are seeing it accelerate at a very increased clip.
I mean,
And it does increase because our port is at jeopardy. It will increase costs throughout the entire country.
I was saying, Senator Landrieu always had a difficult time with this. I mean, does anyone have a different?
Yeah, I just,
yeah, it is.
I really think that in order to sell it to the rest of the country, we have to make sure that people understand the resources that Louisiana gives this country, how important our ports are, how diverse our coastal area is in the world, not just in the country. We have some of the most diverse landscape in the world down there, and we are losing it. But more than that, with climate change, and we're seeing more and more ravaging storms across our Gulf Coast, across the East Coast, and then we have the fires on the West Coast, and we have the droughts. We have to say we are all in this together, and we need to make sure that we come up with a program that addresses all of our needs. One of those things is a national disaster plan that would work for the whole country so that everybody chips in, and when we have a hurricane in North Carolina or a hurricane in Florida, or the massive fires out in Florida, or the droughts, or anything else in the Midwest, that we are all in this together, and we must put together a national disaster plan to help us with those things. In the same vein, when we're talking about an existential threat to like the border, and I've been screaming about this forever. We don't have a congressman in Washington who is saying, what we need to do is get with the other coastal states, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Texas, and go to Congress and form a coalition and say, this is important to our country. In the same way that the border countries said, we got to have a border wall. Well, that's not really an existential threat compared to the coastal states. And we don't have a coalition up there screaming about what we're losing here on the coast or on our eastern seaboard. That's what we need. We need a lot of visibility, and we need someone who's going to go and fight for Louisiana along with the rest of our coastal states and say this is a priority for the country and we're all in this together. There are so many ways to address that.
Thank you. And look. I mean, I think a lot of this has been covered, and we could, if it's okay, I think we could end with something like kind of fun and not so serious, right? Unless either of you have something additional to add. I'm curious because I've never asked this question. Who is your favorite Louisiana historical figure of all time? Not your mama or your daddy. No one related to you. But who, when as an ambassador to Louisiana, and let's start with Mr. Batiste. Actually, I'm picking you first. The question is, who is your favorite Louisiana historical figure of all time? Politician, musician, whatever, you name it. Someone sticks out in your mind from this state.
My Uncle Lionel. They buried him, when he died, they had him standing up with the bass drum.
Yes.
And why he's my most favorite, because he wore 2 watches on the hand. And I got taught a lesson that day. I asked him, why you got 2 watches on the hand? He said, because I got all the time in the world on my hand. And my uncle can make anybody smile if they know their Uncle Lionel. He taught me a lot, and that will be my most favorite.
I think even though I said no relatives, that wins. I mean, you could. That's
well.
everyone knows
I
Uncle
can give you
Lionel.
one more. Tootie Montana, the best Indian chief in the world, because Tootie took that needle and thread, and he had a magic hand. And that man made beautiful suits. He'll have suits on his, be walking with 250 pounds, and he's the prettiest I ever saw. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
I'll go. When I think of Louisiana, and you ask me a question like this, there are all these politicians, but I want to go back to our founding and 8th grade Louisiana history class with Miss Martin at Our Lady Prom Sucker in West Wego, and learning about Iberville and Bienville, the founders and father of Louisiana and of our area right here. And they chose to settle here and up the river. And if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be here today because they chose this area, they settled it, they lived and died here. They were from France, of course. And the French took a very different attitude toward the Native Americans than the Spanish and the British when they came and they explored and they embraced the Native Americans. So I really, Bienville and Iberville, and we should celebrate them as this is our 300th year anniversary here in New Orleans. So those are my two guys.
And the Lemoyne family are still everywhere. Dugas?
Oh, that is, of all the questions I've had, that's the toughest one. There's so many people that I do admire and that I look up to. As far as a politician, the Lindy Boggs. She had a way of just, you can talk to her, and she talked to everybody. She just had this sweet, she would, anytime, you could stop her anywhere, and she'll sit and talk to you, because she had no place to go other than listen to what. Don't move the mic. Okay. As far as the politician is that. Music, I'm a musician. I played drums, guitar, and sang. And I played Jazz Fest when it was the real New Orleans Jazz Fest. Not since it's gotten so big now. But it'd have to be. Miss Irma Thomas is, that's it. I mean, there's nothing else to say about Miss Irma. I mean, I had the privilege when I was 18 at the Old Aspen on a Sunday afternoon to sit in a jam session, because they used to always have the jam sessions after they performed on Saturday night, and you can go down the French Quarter on Sundays, and you can always find a jam session to sit in. And that was one of the most special of this country. I was born in New Orleans, but I grew up in Donaldsonville and the airport. So I am strictly a Bayou girl. Always have. So, but I've been asked a lot of questions, and that's the hardest one that I've ever had to answer.
Well, thank you.
And I'll keep this really. I don't mean this as a cop-out. For me, it has got to be John Bell Edwards. I am super impressed by the person who can sign a bill on his first day in office and provide insurance for 430,000 Louisiana people. I love him.
It's a little bit of a cop-out because he's still alive. But I get the point, and you're right. Well, I don't know if if it's necessarily due to do any closing remarks that we that we're kind of running out of time. But if any of you want to say something, maybe 30 seconds each. Election day obviously is November 6th. The runoff is December 8th. Early voting begins tomorrow. Right. Did you want to say something, or you just okay? So thank you. I mean, do either of you want to? Any of you want to say anything?
I do.
Let's just, I think that'd be fair. 30 seconds. I mean, we've kind of. Let's see. Who did we start with? We started with you. And then I don't know. Whatever. I can't. You go first.
How y'all doing? This is Mr. Belden Batiste. I'm asking y'all to vote for me on November the 6th. I'm number 16. But real quick, let me get my 30 minutes out the way.
Go ahead.
30 seconds.
This to the people of Louisiana, I have more. We got amendments on there. From 1 through 4, I'm asking y'all to vote yes. 5 and 6, no. Because I endorse this, and if y'all see y'all need one, y'all can see me after. And the reason why, no. Anything a tax, they're talking about doubling your tax on your house. No, we're not doing that. And then they're talking about the first responders saying if they die, your children got to pay. No, because you don't want the children holler at the funeral. Man, look what daddy left me with and this and that. You're not a children kid. So y'all just do that for me. And I enjoyed all y'all, enjoyed all the speakers. Thank you, Big Easy. Keep it up.
Can I just say before you that there we have a booth back here on amendment number 2. So if you want to pick up any information on the. Okay, so if people want to pick up additional information, it's right back in the back.
Yes for 2.
Yes for 2.
Y'all a paper, don't worry about it.
Mr. Francis?
Thank you, Lamar. This has been a fun night. This is kind of an unusual, out of the ordinary night. I want to say thank you to everybody here on the panel and to the other candidates that are running against Steve Scalise right now. I encourage them to keep it up. Fight as hard as humanly possible. We are in a jungle primary. All of us need to run the strongest campaigns possible to get Steve Scalise below 50%. And we can actually do that. We are seeing numbers showing that he is declining in popularity. Our numbers are rising. Democrats in general are willing and they're going to fight for America and what we need to do as we go forward. Your vote is the one thing standing between the demolition of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security and not. Please grab everybody you know, specifically the non-voter, grab them, take them to the polls. You are the difference. Please vote.
Thank you. Dr. Savoie?
Hey, y'all, I agree. Get out and vote. Now, I just want to reiterate, I fought for our country for 38 years, and I am ready to go and fight for Louisiana, just like Jim said. I'm going to go and fight for y'all. I'm going to fight for economic prosperity for everyone, for an education system that works for all of our kids, for accessible, affordable health care for everyone, for the bedrock middle class. I am going to fight. I'm going to fight to save our coastal parishes and save our environment. I will fight for a strong and just and moral national security. So my name is Tammy Savoie. Y'all go to the polls to start tomorrow. Say the polls open tomorrow. Go vote, go vote, go vote. And I'm number 14 on the ballot. Go vote, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And here is Leanne.
Thank you. All right, been interesting. Thank y'all, everybody, for coming. Now, this is how forums should be, where we have a good communication of ideas and sharing of ideas and what we can and cannot do, and give y'all some information that y'all might not know, because not everybody is on the internet, not everybody is on cell phone and Twitter and everything. One of the things that I want to say, and I said earlier, time for change is now, and we have to change, but we cannot change anything unless y'all are ready for change. Because if y'all are ready for change, I'm ready for change, and I'm ready to do it. So there's a simple thing you got to say, and that is yes. And it's yes to real change, yes to equality for all, yes to family values. Well, they forgot about us. And yes to Louisiana first. We need to let people know that we need to get our funding back that has been taken away. That funding, it'll go with education, it'll go with seniors, and it would make our country better. I am number 10, ballot on November, and if y'all have any questions, I'm here, feel free, call me at home. Not after 10 p.m. though, that's my bedtime. Any before 10 p.m., being a disabled vet, I'm home, I am at your service. My name is Ann Dugas. 1st Congressional District, number 10. Thank you.
Thank you. And look, thank you all so much. Just for the record, my favorite dead Louisianan is Uncle Earl. And if you've never read the book, The Earl of Louisiana, you should read it probably tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for hosting, or for having me. And thank you. And it was the first time I've ever met you, and you're fantastic. Good luck to you.
And give our host a hand. Give our host, because he really got to it. I loved it. He really got to it. Give a Big Easy a hand, too.
Yeah,
Big Easy, too.
Thank you, Mr. Batiste. Thank you. One more round of applause for our candidates here. Thank you. And for our moderator, Lamar White, Bayou Brief.